What's happening? Welcome back to Midnight Entertainment, Official X Midnight here, and today I'm bringing you a very special Borderlands 3 video, which I'm giving you our brand new build, which we are calling the Raging Nukem. There are three primary focuses of this particular build, one of which is through a very special shield which has gained quite a lot of traction recently, which is the Revolter shield. The second focus is our Iron Bear cooldown, and the third focus is Iron Bear's weapon, which you probably would have guessed by now is the nuclear missiles. So very soon we'll go into a little bit more detail on how all of this works. As always, if you like this video, give this a wee subscribe as it helps the channel in the long run to provide more videos like this and many others every single week. And on top of that, as we're a full gaming entertainment business, check out more on what we do in the description below. If you want to also skip to any part of the video that specifies gear, weapons, skill trees, and our Maliwan takedown test, feel free to do so, as those categories are highlighted for you in the video itself and the video description. So without further interruption, let's get into the build. So, as mentioned before, one of the main benefits of this build is that shield. So we're going to go through the gear first, which will make our skill trees make a lot more sense as we go through the video. Right now, as you can see, we have the Targe Revolter, and the main benefit of this shield, which we'll be focusing on for this build, is the Shock and Rage benefit, which adds 50% fire rate and a massive 200% shock damage on top of any weapon that Moze uses when her shield breaks. On top of that, our anointment, which is the orange and yellow text at the bottom there, will maximise our time being shock and raged. As you can see, we can activate the shock and rage benefit in two specific scenarios here. One for when our shield actually breaks, and the other is when we activate our action skill. This effect would typically last for just 15 seconds, but for this build we are extending that to ensure that it remains active as much as we want it to be. Also, if you want to check out our titanium bear build, which you can see at the top of this video right now, we actually used that as a template and changed a few things to it so we can utilise that new shield and amp up that damage to Moze herself. Next up, we opted for the Blastmaster class mod. We could have gone for the Raging Bear since it is an Iron Bear build, but because we're not focusing on the duration of Iron Bear, that particular class wasn't needed. The Blastmaster provides huge potential with splash damage when we're using our weapons, which only adds to that shock and rage benefit. This build also barely even needs reloaded, so here we're utilising that splash damage bonus to the best it can be. To further this build as well, we have our first cooldown rate increase on here as one of those percentage perks, which adds 43% cooldown rate. And of course, as long as we're relying on grenade healing, we would also keep the infamous CMT. Pretty self-explanatory at this point, but for those of you who aren't familiar, this is the Cloning Maddening Tracker. On throw, it splits into 2 grenades, and then those individual grenades spawn 3 more. And then all of these bounce and detonate up to 3 times. And by the way, all of these home in on the closest enemy. With the given OGT anointment, this is the best grenade in the entire game, and especially those for Moze, considering every grenade that spawns not only has the potential to heal, but they regenerate at the same time as long as we produce critical hits. Our artifact for this build is the Radio Dead Victory Rush. This has quite a few benefits. First off, with the obvious 18% movement speed and damage on badass kills, and this can stack for as long as you're doing those kills. We also have some elemental resistance there with shock and corrosive with those perks, and of course we're stacking even more cooldown rate with this one at an additional 30%. Since we're here already, I'm just going to skim through those weapons for you just now. The best weapon for this build currently is the full automatic Soul Render with the 30% cooldown rate anointment on kills. So all in, the artifact and the class mod are bringing us up to 73% cooldown rate. Then we have 40% cooldown rate on critical hits with our explosive punctuation skill in the blue tree. And then we're not only gaining the damage and movement speed increases on badass kills, but on regular kills with the Soul Render, that's 30% more cooldown. All of this is to ensure that we always have the bear, and even at that, the Soul Render skulls provide huge damage, which you'll see in the Maliwan test. We also have the Flipper here, which produces pure damage whenever you need it, and the anointment gives us that massive splash damage benefit during our Iron Bear cooldowns. We're also using a consecutive hits anointed shock boogeyman. This not only procs extremely well with being shock enraged, but our inherent ammo regen keeps that damage for as long as you want. And finally, we're using a corrosive plague bearer with even more bonus corrosive damage on action skill end, just for those moments where you're up against either a massive crowd of enemies or you're up against an armoured boss, and this will personally guarantee kills within just 1 or 2 shots. So that is it for the gear and weapons. Now we will get onto the skills. Right now on your screen you'll see a full breakdown of our skill trees, so feel free to pause the video just now and have a quick look, but I will go into a little more detail as to our changes here from our original titanium bear template that we started off with. The main skills we'll be focusing on in this rundown are the things that make this build what it is. The action skill that we chose for this build is the nuclear missiles. This is how we're able to clear areas of enemies and sustain that damage between cooldowns. In the blue tree, we're providing as much damage as we can with fire in the skag den and short fuse all the way down here. We're also building down to provide that cooldown rate with explosive punctuation, as we mentioned before, and the auto bear fills our cooldown time with some companion damage and closes that gap between activating one iron bear and going into the next. And finally, means of destruction, pull of the holy pin, and vampire provides us with a substantial chunk of health, grenade and ammo regen, where the grenades themselves produce critical hits. And on critical hits we not only heal, but is also self-sustaining by giving us back the same grenades on a certain percentage chance. On max points it gives us 60%, and the class mod that we have only benefits that even more. In the orange tree, nothing's really changed here, but we do still have the bubble shield. Armoured infantry and drowning in brass gives Moze her much needed gun damage. Full can of whip ass is here to make sure our shields immediately start recharging when entering Iron Bear, and the munitions skill provides us some more incendiary on top of our critical hits. In our green tree, Cloud of Lead, Stoke the Embers, Scorching RPMs and Click Click provides even more gun damage through splash and incendiary procs. We also get infinite ammo when we exit Iron Bear with the Some for the Road skill, and of course because we're using the same weapon in our Iron Bear in both slots, Specialist Bear provides a huge 60% damage to those nuclear missiles. And finally, Redistribution and Forge down here provide that much needed health and ammo regen. For the final tree here, we're still going to go for the big surplus for more gun damage, and we had 1 point spare which we went into providing a little bit more damage on the bear. So that is it for the entire build, a very quick rundown for the video. So all in, as a summary, what all of this gives us is constant iron bears with auto bears and infinite ammo in between, immunity windows when entering and exiting your bear. We're also shock enraged every single time our shield breaks and when we activate the bear, and the nuclear missiles can clear areas with massive damage and creates breathing space whenever you're mobbing and obviously destroying the game as we speak. So that is it for the video today. I'll pass you on to our Maliwan takedown tests so you can see just how effective this build can be in a real scenario. I hope you love it as much as I do, as this build has seen me through some really tough areas in the game, and it is the happiest I've personally been with Moze so far. And with that, I will bid you adieu, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!